Data flow diagram is a combination of processes, external entities, and or data stores, and there's a description between each one. It could be responsible for many different processes, and it is the whole thing. The combination from parent to child DFD, everything that is related to this is accounted for. I just made one here very quickly. I do have to apologize. I couldn't make this any better because it wanted to upgrade to premium and it wouldn't let me do that. We are essentially calculating the grade by finding test scores, finding attendance, and finding assignment scores. So everything the student has taken the tests, their attendance and assignment scores, it will lead to their final grade. And the teacher compiles all the grade items and you get the final grade. For DFD symbols, there are a variety of symbols that are utilized in the data flow diagram. A round square like this with a horizontal line going through its top denotes a process. It must have an action. A normal square with a shadow over in the background is an external entity that contributes to the process in some way. And then a small rectangle like this with a vertical line going through the left side is a data store. Then arrows represent data flow. There are various rules for a data flow diagram as well. One of them is that you can't do this action or these actions. You can't connect an external entity to a data storage. That won't make sense. You can't connect a data store to a data store. That won't make sense either. And then an external entity with an external entity, you can't connect. You can't assign any actions in between them, and this can lead to a variety of consequences. Spontaneous generation right here is these are the things that would happen in a spontaneous generation scenario. It is essentially an incorrectly mixed up flow of information and data. It's typically associated with how we treat the processes right here. Generally speaking, you should not do these things. Black hole is this scenario right here. It is a situation that occurs when a process does not yield any outputs. It is represented with no arrows leaving it. A gray hole is not enough variables that lead to the final piece. As you can see in my weather condition example, it doesn't really make sense. Not enough information is given. Or oftentimes it doesn't even contribute. It's not related to the topic at all. The difference between a context diagram and a diagram 0 DFD. A context diagram is the first step to a data flow diagram. A DFD diagram is started by creating a context diagram first, and that's how you go from there. And then a context diagram is only a representation of one process, which is denoted as 0. A data flow diagram itself can have many context diagrams, which is the end result. A context diagram is only responsible for one process, which is added up, and a diagram 0 DFD is different because it's the second step which provides more detail into context diagram because it would be too general and not specific otherwise if it wasn't there. So this is my example of a context diagram. It is fairly simply laid out. It's the first step to building the DFD. And then this is diagram 0 for implementing updates. It's more opened up, it's an exploded view, and it's more in-depth than it would be as a context diagram. There are more entries in here and more processes going on. Well, then there's leveling. Right here I have an example of a not leveled data flow diagram, and then right here it is leveled. The difference between the two is that it is essentially being built up and described in more and more details. It produces like more of an exploded view. This is used to create lower level diagrams. The results is very high detail that explains the concepts much better. Right here I just have a proposal to create a presentation with presenting software, and the hosts eventually creates the final products. Whereas here, I also expand upon that, saying we need requirements, we need a division of labor, we need role designations, and then we organize that into the presentation then on, and then this ends up going into the final product. And then lastly, we have balancing. Balancing right here is like illegal moves that we can't make. Um, so balancing would essentially ensure that all of the flow and relationships add up in the end. So as the examples show on the screen, these wouldn't be allowed in a normal DFD.